Okay, so what's this video about?
Just pretend you're our dad and we're trying to convince you to buy the newest Pokemon and play with us.
And both of you guys are big fans. What game was your entry game into the Pokemon series?
For me, it was Pokemon Yellow for Game Boy Color, and I was a huge fan of that game. I think I was like 9 years old when it came out, and that's where the whole thing started for me.
That's not a game that, this doesn't seem to be a series that people outgrow like they do for some of them, you know, where it's like, oh, I started that when I was young, but then I moved on to other things. It seems like for a lot of Pokemon fans, like once they get them young, they actually keep buying.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I started with Pokemon Red and Blue and I played Gold and Silver a lot, kind of stopped for a while, but just like last month I spent hours and hours on eBay looking for Pokemon Emeralds. I actually wrote a blog post about how to not buy counterfeit Pokemon Emeralds. Apparently it's one of the most bootlegged games, I don't know why.
I was one of those players where they didn't actually get me when I was young. Jeez, I can't even remember the first one I played. It might have been Leaf Green. So I started with that, and actually in my mind had sort of dismissed it as like, this may be a little more kiddie than I want to get into. And I totally got addicted to it.
I know for me, I kind of like, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't like Pokemon or anything like that. It just kind of like, for a while there, was feeling a little bit repetitive, and I actually got back into it with Black and White.
For each of you, let's say that you're talking to someone like me, who's maybe a lapsed Pokemon fan. What about the upcoming X and Y versions? What about that should I be excited about?
Well, one thing I noticed that I think, if you're feeling a little bit tired on the franchise, they do have the new Horde battle mode. So basically it's gonna, instead of just the standard battles where you're just having one Pokemon, and even the rotation battles that they offered, it's gonna be multiple Pokemon against one.
How is like 3-on-1 fair?
You know, I'm not sure how it's actually going to pan out in the game, but I was looking, this seems like the weaker Pokemon kind of travel in packs, perhaps. But I think another really just cool feature about X and Y is Pokemon in general, like, they take the best elements from generation to generation, just improve them and then add as many elements as they can. And this one just takes the cake. Like, this looks totally different than all the other Pokemons out there. I mean, you're getting full 3D animation. The battle animations are just like, they're just awesome looking. Like, it's like you're playing, party system of Final Fantasy.
And the Pokemon will actually have attack animations, right? They're not just going like and shaking a little bit.
Yeah, with the double Pokemon battles, I really am not a fan of those because it feels like the characters are really bullies. Like, so the way that it works is if you encounter two trainers at the same time, they'll both attack you. But like, these people don't even know each other; they're just immediately teaming up against you.
That just seems like it's the world of Pokemon, right? Like everything just revolves around fighting, and like that's everyone's icebreaker.
They also have like a Nintendog/Tamagotchi type feature where you can take the stylus and like pet your Pokemon, and, like pat them on the head and stuff. And
does that do anything, or
maybe for younger players?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it sounded like it might improve their affection towards you or something. I don't know.
That does not sound like fun.
I think it's optional. That's not the selling point.
You're not convincing me with the whole like Pikachu rubbing angle. Are they actually doing anything with the character of the protagonist these days, or is it still sort of just the normal, like, someone whose mom kicks him out for the day and he just like goes and has a world-spanning adventure?
There is a new thing with like multiple characters, like you have multiple friends that kind of go around with you, so instead of just being a child on your own traveling the world, you have like a whole group of friends.
If you remember from the anime, they have like Ash travels around with Brock and Misty, and they got that sort of thing going on in Black and White, and probably this one too.
Okay, what about the starter Pokemon? Because for me, ever since there was, what did I have? Charmander?
Charmander.
Yeah. Every other like starting Pokemon I've ever seen has just seemed like totally lame in comparison to Charmander.
I'm not that impressed with the starter Pokemon I've seen. They kind of look like different versions of animals. Like there's one that kind of looks like a chipmunk.
Hold up for a second. All Pokemon kind of look like weird versions of real animals.
Like more so.
We've seen the 3 starter Pokemon. We haven't seen their future evolutionary forms, and so they're gonna get cooler as they evolve. Like the first sort of tier of all the starters kind of look cutesy. They're adding a new Pokemon type to this called Fairy. So the developers have said that the dragon type Pokemon are a little bit too overpowered. They don't really have like a huge weakness, and so they're introducing Fairy type to counter that.
Yeah, that's why Charmander's awesome. He's dragon type, right?
He's fire.
Ah. Like each entry kind of has these legendary Pokemon, right? What's the story with those things in X and Y?
one kind of looks like an X and one kind of looks like a Y.
Yeah, there's that. That's true.
And they have really hard to pronounce names.
Each generation's introducing like exponentially more legendary Pokemon. Okay. But one really cool thing coming out, Mewtwo is getting a new form, so that's awesome.
This is just like Mew 3?
God,
I bet it is. I bet it is.
I hope it's not. I hope it's not.
Do you guys play long enough to the point that you actually end up getting those legendary Pokemon in the different versions?
I do. I've almost beaten Pokemon Emerald now, and it's usually I think the legendary Pokemon you catch after you beat the Elite Four, and so I really am excited. Pokemon Emerald have like sub-legendary Pokemon, which I can catch before I beat the Elite Four. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't understand what you just said.
So, are you convinced, Joe? Are you gonna at least buy or borrow Pokemon X or Y?
Well, I'll let you know, I'm a little secret. I was actually kind of convinced before we started talking. I enjoy the time that I spend with those games a lot, though I'm definitely not the kind of gamer that's going to jump into every one and play it to completion. It's just for me, as a big fan of JRPGs in general, there's just something that is hard to put your finger on in terms of how addictive it is to just go around and grab those things. I think the Persona series has a similar kind of thing to it. There's something about like crafting all these demons and monsters and stuff, the collection aspect of it. I think you guys solidified it.
Great. I'm glad that we could be of some help.
I want to be the very best. Come on.
No one ever was. Dun, dun.
Just fade out on that, Hanson. That's good. We don't need it.